Hey warrior, pause, not because the world asked you to slow down, but because something inside you has been demanding your attention for a long time. That quiet tension you feel when the noise fades, that awareness that your life is moving, but not with the force it should. This moment right now is not random. It is a confrontation. You are standing at the edge of your own potential, and the only thing blocking the path forward is the version of yourself that keeps choosing comfort over command. Most men never stop long enough to face this. They stay busy, distracted, entertained. They call it living, but it is only movement without direction. You are different, or you would not be here. Something in you understands that strength is not given, it is built. And it is built daily, in silence, through discipline. This is not a video to make you feel good. This is a reminder of responsibility. You were not born to drift. You were not meant to spend your days reacting to circumstances, obeying impulses, or negotiating with weakness. You were built for self-command, for clarity, for inner order in a chaotic world. But that strength does not activate on its own. It must be trained. The ancient Stoics understood this long before modern distractions existed. They lived in a world of uncertainty, violence, and pressure, yet they built minds so stable that no external chaos could overthrow them. They did not ask life to be easier. They demanded more from themselves. That is the difference. Modern culture teaches you to manage discomfort. Stoicism teaches you to master it. Right now, there is a silent war happening inside you, not against people, not against systems, against hesitation, against emotional reactivity, against the voice that says later, tomorrow, someday. Every day, that voice either grows stronger or weaker, depending on who you listen to. Most men let it grow. They wake up already defeated, reaching for distraction before direction. They avoid silence because silence reveals truth. They chase motivation instead of building discipline. And then they wonder why their confidence feels fragile and their peace feels borrowed. You already know this pattern. You have felt it. That is why this matters. Strength is not a personality trait. It is a daily practice. And the foundation of that practice is law. Not rules you follow when convenient, but laws you obey regardless of mood, circumstance, or comfort. What you are about to enter is not philosophy for entertainment. It is philosophy for survival. Laws forged to build an inner structure so solid that stress cannot crack it, pressure cannot bend it, and chaos cannot penetrate it. These are Stoic laws. They are not trends. They are not hacks. They are principles that turn ordinary men into controlled, composed, unbreakable forces. But understand this clearly before we continue. Knowing these laws means nothing. Agreement means nothing. Understanding means nothing. Only application matters. If you listen casually, you will gain nothing. If you skip parts, the structure collapses. Strength is built through completeness. Partial discipline produces partial results, and partial results create doubt. This is why most men stay average. They sample wisdom but never submit to it. If you are serious about self-mastery, then stay present, not just with your ears, but with your attention, because each law builds on the one before it. Miss one and you weaken the chain. The Stoics believed that life does not test you to break you. It tests you to reveal who you have become. Pressure exposes the quality of your inner world. When stress rises, the mask falls. What remains is training. Ask yourself honestly, when life applies pressure, do you remain calm or do you react? When things do not go your way, do you adjust or do you complain? When no one is watching, do you stay disciplined or do you drift? These questions are uncomfortable because they are accurate, but discomfort is where growth begins. You do not need to become someone new. You need to strip away what is unnecessary. Weak habits, undisciplined thoughts, emotional excess, constant noise. What remains is strength that was always there. The Stoics did not believe in waiting for perfect conditions. They believed in acting correctly within imperfect ones. They understood that time does not reward intention. It rewards alignment between thought, action, and character. That alignment is rare, and because it is rare, it is powerful. What follows in the next parts are laws that govern the inner life. Laws that teach you how to command your mind, regulate emotion, build discipline, cultivate patience, and protect peace, not as abstract ideas, but as daily practices. These laws will not make you popular. They will not make life easy. They will make you steady, and steadiness is the foundation of all power. Before we move forward, you must make a decision, not aloud, internally. Are you willing to stop negotiating with weakness? Are you willing to be misunderstood while you build strength quietly? Are you willing to do the work even when motivation disappears? Because Stoicism is not about appearing strong. It is about becoming unshakable, and that requires commitment. Every day, whether you realize it or not, you are being shaped by habits, by reactions, by what you tolerate in your own behavior. You are either refining your character or eroding it. There is no neutral. The world will continue to pull at your attention. Comfort will continue to invite you to rest before you are ready. Excuses will always sound reasonable. But discipline is not about arguing with excuses. It is about acting despite them. This is the moment where you stop consuming ideas and start preparing for action. In the next part, the first Stoic law will be revealed. It governs the foundation of all strength. Without it, nothing else holds. With it, everything changes. Stay focused, stay present, and remember this: a man who learns to govern himself no longer fears the world. When you are ready, say nothing. Just continue. Law 1. Master your mind before you try to master life. Everything begins here. Not with action, not with discipline, not with purpose, with the mind. Because the mind issues every command you follow. If the mind is undisciplined, your actions will be scattered. If the mind is unstable, your emotions will rule you. If the mind is weak, no external strength will save you. Most men try to change their lives by changing circumstances, new habits, new goals, new environments, but they carry the same uncontrolled mind into each new attempt, and the result is always the same: temporary progress followed by collapse. The Stoics understood a truth that still governs reality. You do not experience the world as it is. You experience it as you interpret it. Two men can face the same hardship. One breaks, one becomes stronger. The difference is not the event. It is the mind that meets it. Your mind is not neutral. It is either trained or untrained, either governed or uncontrolled, either clear or polluted. An untrained mind reacts instantly. It jumps to conclusions. It assumes the worst. It panics under pressure. It overthinks in silence and explodes in action. This is not intelligence. This is chaos disguised as thought. A trained mind pauses. It observes before judging. It separates facts from interpretation. It remains calm long enough to choose the correct response. This is not passivity. This is dominance. The first law of Stoic strength is simple, but unforgiving. You must take responsibility for the quality of your thoughts. Not some of them, all of them. Every thought you repeat becomes a pattern. Every pattern becomes a belief. Every belief becomes a direction. Over time, those directions shape your life. That is why a weak inner dialogue produces a weak outer life, even when talent exists. Most men are not defeated by circumstances. They are defeated by their own internal noise. endless mental chatter, self-doubt disguised as realism, fear dressed up as caution, excuses framed as logic. The Stoic does not argue with every thought. He observes it. He asks one question: is this thought useful or destructive? If it is destructive, it is dismissed, not debated, not entertained. Dismissed. This is where control begins. Working on your mind daily means understanding that not every thought deserves attention. Some thoughts are intruders. Some are habits left over from fear, insecurity, or past failure. Letting them stay is a choice, even if it feels automatic. The world will constantly attempt to program your thinking. News, social media, other people's opinions, emotional environments. If you do not consciously choose what enters your mind, something else will choose for you. That is not freedom, that is submission. The Stoics trained their minds through intentional exposure and intentional restraint. They practiced reflection. They reviewed their thoughts at the end of the day. They corrected mental errors the way a craftsman corrects flawed work. They understood that mental discipline is not about positive thinking. It is about accurate thinking, seeing reality clearly without emotional distortion. A disciplined mind does not exaggerate problems. It does not catastrophize. It does not turn inconvenience into suffering. It recognizes difficulty without dramatizing it. This is why mental mastery produces calm. When your thoughts are ordered, your emotions settle. When your emotions settle, your actions become precise. When your actions are precise, confidence grows. Not the loud confidence of ego, but the quiet confidence of control. Working on your mind daily also means embracing silence. Silence is where you notice what you have been avoiding. It is where your true thought patterns reveal themselves. That is why most men avoid it. Silence removes distraction, and distraction is the shield of the undisciplined mind. The Stoic uses silence as training. He sits with discomfort instead of escaping it. He allows difficult thoughts to surface, not to suffer, but to study them. Once a thought is understood, it loses power. Fear thrives in vagueness. Clarity dissolves it. Another practice of mental mastery is negative visualization, not to become pessimistic, but to become prepared. The Stoics imagined loss, hardship, and failure to reduce their emotional shock when challenges arrived. When you expect ease, difficulty feels like injustice. When you expect difficulty, challenge feels normal. This mental preparation creates resilience. It trains the mind to remain stable even when outcomes are uncertain. You cannot control what happens, but you can control how prepared your mind is to face it. The mind also must be trained to focus. Scattered attention produces scattered results. If you cannot control your focus, you cannot control your life. Every distraction you obey weakens your authority over yourself. Focus is not a talent, it is a discipline, and like all disciplines, it is built through repetition. Choose periods of intentional focus every day. One task, one objective, one window of time without interruption. This trains the mind to obey your direction instead of chasing stimulation. At first, resistance will appear. Restlessness, boredom, the urge to check, scroll, escape. This is not failure, this is exposure. You are seeing how untrained the mind has become. Do not retreat. Stay. Each time you remain focused despite discomfort, you reclaim a piece of authority over yourself. Mental mastery also requires replacing reactive questions with constructive ones. Instead of asking why this is happening to me, ask what is required of me now. Instead of asking, how do I avoid discomfort, ask, how do I handle this correctly? Questions shape perception. Perception shapes response. The Stoic does not waste mental energy on what cannot be changed. He directs it toward what can be controlled. Effort, attitude, judgment, action. This mental economy creates power. Over time, as you train your mind daily, something changes. You stop feeling mentally overwhelmed by small problems. You stop reacting emotionally to minor setbacks. You stop being controlled by random thoughts that once dictated your mood. You become steady, and steadiness is rare. A steady mind does not mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes manageable. It means you remain intact under pressure. It means stress no longer decides who you are in the moment. This is why the first Stoic law governs everything else. Without mental mastery, discipline collapses, purpose fades, self-control weakens, peace becomes fragile. But with it, you gain something priceless, the ability to choose your response regardless of conditions. Every morning, remind yourself of this law. My mind is under my command. Every evening, review your thoughts. Where did you react instead of choose? Where did you allow unnecessary noise? Do not judge yourself, correct yourself. This is training, and training is what separates men who drift from men who direct their lives. Hold this law firmly. The next laws depend on it. Your mind is not your enemy. It is your most powerful tool, but only if you learn to wield it. Law 2. Command your emotions, or they will command you. Emotions are not weaknesses. Lack of control over them is. This law separates men who remain composed under pressure from men who collapse internally while appearing functional on the outside. Most people believe strength means feeling less. The Stoic understands strength means being ruled by feeling less. Your emotions rise automatically. Your response does not have to be. That distinction is everything. An untrained man believes his emotions are instructions. If he feels angry, he must speak. If he feels offended, he must react. If he feels anxious, he must avoid. His inner state dictates his behavior. That is not freedom. That is obedience to impulse. The Stoic does not deny emotion. He denies emotion authority. Anger arrives. He notices it. Fear appears. He observes it. Desire pulls. He measures it. And then he decides. This gap between feeling and action is the birthplace of power. It is where control lives. Without it, even intelligence becomes dangerous. With it, even pressure becomes manageable. Most emotional suffering is self-generated, not because people choose pain, but because they confuse emotion with identity. They believe what they feel defines who they are in the moment. The Stoic separates the two. You feel anger. That does not mean you are anger. You feel fear. That does not mean you are weak. You feel sadness. That does not mean you are broken. They are temporary signals passing through consciousness. When you attach to them, they expand. When you observe them, they dissolve. This is why emotional mastery requires awareness before control. You cannot command what you do not notice. Daily emotional training begins with observation. When a reaction starts to rise, you pause internally and name it. This is anger. This is jealousy. This is insecurity. Naming creates distance. Distance creates choice. Without this practice, emotions hijack behavior before logic arrives. The Stoics taught that events themselves are neutral. It is judgment that creates suffering. Insults have no power until accepted. Delays have no meaning until interpreted. Loss hurts, but unnecessary suffering comes from resisting reality instead of meeting it with clarity. A disciplined emotional response does not mean suppressing emotion. Suppression stores pressure. Pressure eventually erupts. Control means allowing emotion to exist without letting it drive action. When anger arises, the Stoic does not explode. He allows the sensation to pass without feeding it. He understands that anger feels urgent but is rarely accurate. Acting on it feels satisfying but almost always costs more than it gives. The same applies to fear. Fear is a signal, not a verdict. It often points to uncertainty, not danger. When fear appears, the Stoic asks what preparation is required rather than seeking escape. This transforms fear from a paralyzing force into a guiding one. Emotional mastery also means refusing to personalize everything. Not every behavior directed at you is about you. Not every setback is an attack. Not every disagreement is disrespect. When you stop interpreting life through ego, emotional turbulence decreases. Most emotional reactivity is rooted in identity protection, the need to be right, the need to be respected, the need to be validated. These needs turn minor situations into internal battles. The Stoic releases this burden. He understands that his worth is not decided by opinions, reactions, or external approval. This detachment weakens emotional volatility at its root. Daily emotional training requires slowing down responses. Silence becomes a tool. When something provokes you, delay your response. Breathe. Allow the emotional wave to crest and fall. What remains after is clarity. This practice alone can change your life. The man who responds after emotion settles appears calm, controlled, and formidable. The man who reacts instantly appears predictable and unstable. Which one commands respect? Another key discipline is emotional redirection. Emotions carry energy. Anger contains force. Fear contains focus. Desire contains drive. When controlled, these energies can be used constructively. Anger can fuel discipline instead of destruction. Fear can fuel preparation instead of avoidance. Desire can fuel improvement instead of indulgence. But this requires intention. Without intention, emotion runs wild. With intention, emotion becomes fuel. The Stoics practiced emotional rehearsal. They anticipated difficult interactions and imagined themselves responding with restraint. This mental rehearsal trained emotional pathways. When real situations arrived, calm responses were already familiar. You can do the same. Visualize situations that usually trigger you. Picture yourself remaining composed, speaking calmly, walking away. Over time, the mind begins to accept this response as normal. This is not fantasy, this is conditioning. Emotional mastery also involves reducing exposure to unnecessary triggers. Constant outrage, gossip, comparison, and negativity overstimulate emotional systems. When you constantly feed emotional reactivity, control becomes impossible. Choose environments that support steadiness. This does not mean isolation, it means selectivity. Another essential element of emotional discipline is self-forgiveness. You will fail, you will react, you will lose control at times. The undisciplined man spirals into guilt. The Stoic corrects course. Self-punishment weakens control. Correction strengthens it. At the end of each day, review your emotional responses. Where did you remain composed? Where did you react unnecessarily? Learn, adjust, move forward. This process builds emotional intelligence without self-destruction. Over time, emotional mastery produces a noticeable shift. Fewer emotional spikes, faster recovery, greater internal calm. Others begin to sense it. They feel steadier around you. Conflicts lose power. You become difficult to provoke. This is not emotional coldness, it is emotional strength. A man who commands his emotions cannot be manipulated through insult, fear, or praise. He chooses his response based on principle, not impulse. That is authority. Remember this law clearly. You do not control what you feel first. You control what you do next. That choice determines your character. Every day, life will test this law. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Pressure will rise. Each moment is training. Each controlled response strengthens your inner command. Hold this law firmly. The next one builds upon it. Law 3. Discipline is the structure that holds your life together. Without discipline, nothing you want can survive. Intelligence fades, motivation evaporates, talent wastes away. Discipline is the force that turns intention into reality. It is not dramatic, it is not exciting, it is relentless, quiet, and uncompromising. Most men misunderstand discipline. They treat it like a punishment imposed from the outside, something forced, something temporary. The Stoic understands discipline as self-respect in action. It is the decision to live according to reason rather than impulse. Discipline begins where comfort ends. Every day your mind will attempt to negotiate. It will offer excuses that sound logical. It will say rest is deserved. Delay is harmless. Tomorrow is safer. These negotiations feel reasonable because the mind seeks ease by default. The disciplined man does not negotiate. He acts according to commitment, not mood. He understands that waiting to feel ready is the fastest way to remain stagnant. Readiness is a result of action, not a requirement for it. The Stoics believed that duty outweighs desire, that doing what must be done matters more than doing what feels good. They did not wait for perfect conditions. They acted correctly within imperfect ones. This mindset separates those who build from those who drift. Discipline is built through small promises kept consistently, not massive goals chased sporadically. One action done daily with integrity reshapes identity faster than occasional bursts of effort. When you keep a promise to yourself, something important happens internally. Trust is formed. Your mind begins to accept your authority. When you break promises repeatedly, self-trust erodes. Doubt takes its place. This is why discipline must start small but remain non-negotiable. Choose one task each day that you complete regardless of mood. It does not matter how insignificant it seems. What matters is consistency. This trains your nervous system to obey instruction rather than impulse. Discipline is also subtraction. Removing what weakens you is as important as adding what strengthens you. Excess distraction, excess indulgence, excess explanation. These erode focus and dilute effort. The disciplined man simplifies his life. Fewer decisions, clear routines, predictable structure. This reduces mental friction and preserves energy for what matters. Routine is not imprisonment, it is liberation. When your day has structure, you waste less energy deciding what to do. You simply do it. The Stoics valued routine because it stabilized behavior. They understood that chaos in schedule produces chaos in mind. Discipline also requires endurance. Results often arrive slowly. Progress is invisible at first. This is where most men quit. They mistake silence for failure. The disciplined man understands that progress compounds quietly. He trusts the process because he trusts the principles behind it. Discipline means acting when no one is watching, when praise is absent, when reward is delayed, when effort feels lonely. This is the true test. A man who can remain disciplined without external validation has already surpassed most people. He no longer depends on applause. His standard is internal. Another pillar of discipline is consistency over intensity. Extreme effort followed by collapse produces nothing. Moderate effort sustained over time produces transformation. The Stoics practiced moderation because it allowed permanence. They preferred steady progress over emotional extremes. This is why discipline must be sustainable. It should challenge you, not destroy you. Burnout is not strength, it is mismanagement. Discipline also demands saying no. No to unnecessary invitations. No to distractions disguised as opportunities. No to comfort that interferes with growth. Every no to weakness is a yes to strength. This is uncomfortable because it requires short-term sacrifice. But sacrifice is simply the exchange of lesser value for greater value. The disciplined man chooses long-term stability over short-term pleasure. Discipline must also extend to thought and speech. Complaining weakens resolve. Excess talking leaks energy. The disciplined man speaks less and acts more. He understands that explanation is often a form of avoidance. Action requires no justification. Daily discipline includes physical movement, mental focus, and emotional restraint. Not extremes. Consistency. The body supports the mind. A neglected body becomes a liability under pressure. Discipline is also punctuality, starting when planned, ending when appropriate, respecting time as a resource. The Stoics viewed time as life itself. To waste time was to waste existence. This awareness sharpened their discipline. When you treat time with respect, your actions gain weight. Another essential element of discipline is resilience. You will fail at times. You will break routine. You will miss days. The undisciplined man quits after failure. The disciplined man resumes immediately. There is no drama, no self-punishment, just correction. Perfection is irrelevant. Continuity is everything. Discipline also protects you from emotional decision-making. When routines exist, emotions have less influence. You act because it is scheduled, not because it feels good. This creates stability during emotional turbulence. Over time, discipline reshapes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to be disciplined. You become someone who simply does what must be done. This identity shift is powerful. Others begin to notice, not because you announce it, but because your behavior becomes reliable. Reliability builds trust. Trust builds authority. Discipline also builds confidence, not the loud kind, the quiet kind that comes from knowing you can depend on yourself. That confidence cannot be faked. Remember this law clearly. Discipline is not about intensity. It is about integrity. Doing what you committed to do even when no one would notice if you did not. Each disciplined action reinforces your inner structure. Each undisciplined action weakens it. Choose accordingly. This law prepares you for the next one. Without discipline, purpose cannot be sustained. Law 4. Purpose gives weight to every action. Without purpose, effort becomes random and discipline turns hollow. A man without purpose may stay busy, but he is never fulfilled. He moves constantly, yet goes nowhere. Purpose is what turns movement into direction. It is the reason effort matters and sacrifice makes sense. Most men confuse purpose with ambition. They think purpose is status, money, recognition, or achievement. These are outcomes, not reasons. When outcomes become the focus, motivation rises and falls with results. When results delay, energy disappears. The Stoic understands purpose differently. Purpose is not what you get. It is who you choose to become through what you do. A man with purpose wakes up anchored. Even when motivation is low, direction remains clear. Even when conditions are difficult, effort continues. Purpose stabilizes behavior because it answers the most important question. Why am I doing this? When that question is unanswered, comfort always wins. Purpose does not arrive fully formed. It is constructed through reflection and action. Waiting for clarity before moving is a mistake. Clarity comes from movement, not the other way around. The Stoics believed that human beings are meant to live according to reason and contribution. That meaning comes from fulfilling one's role with excellence, not from chasing pleasure. They understood that fulfillment follows responsibility, not ease. Purpose begins when you decide to stop drifting. Drifting feels harmless, but it slowly erodes self-respect. Days blend together. Effort feels optional. Time slips away unnoticed. Purpose interrupts this decay. It forces intention into your routine. A purposeful man does not ask what is easiest. He asks what is necessary. He does not chase what feels good. He commits to what feels right. Working on purpose daily means reconnecting with your values, what matters to you when no one is watching, what you respect in others, what kind of person you refuse to become. These answers form the foundation of purpose. Purpose also requires selecting a direction, not forever, for now. One path worth committing to long enough to develop competence and character. Constant switching is avoidance disguised as exploration. The Stoic chooses and commits. Purpose is strengthened through service. When your actions contribute to something beyond your immediate comfort, meaning deepens. Building skill, supporting others, creating value. These efforts anchor identity. A life focused only on self-gratification eventually feels empty. A life aligned with contribution remains meaningful even during hardship. Purpose also transforms suffering. Pain without meaning becomes despair. Pain with purpose becomes training. The Stoics understood this deeply. They did not seek suffering, but they refused to waste it. Obstacles become instruction when viewed through purpose. Setbacks become feedback. Resistance becomes refinement. When you know why you endure, endurance becomes possible. Working on purpose daily also means reviewing your actions honestly. Does this align with who I am trying to become? Does this move me closer or pull me away? Purpose sharpens decision-making by filtering options. Without purpose, every option feels equally appealing. With purpose, many options become irrelevant. This simplifies life. Purpose does not require certainty. It requires commitment. You do not need a perfect plan. You need a clear direction and the discipline to stay with it long enough to grow. The Stoic avoids chasing endless alternatives. He understands that depth produces mastery, and mastery produces confidence. Purpose also demands courage. Living with purpose often means disappointing others, rejecting paths that look impressive but feel empty, accepting delayed gratification, standing firm when easier options appear. This discomfort is the price of alignment. Working on purpose daily includes small acts of reaffirmation, reminding yourself why you chose this path, reviewing long-term goals, adjusting actions when they drift off course. Purpose is not maintained automatically. It must be protected. Distraction is the greatest enemy of purpose. Constant stimulation fragments attention. Fragmented attention weakens intention. A purposeful man guards his focus carefully. He chooses environments that support growth. He limits exposure to influences that dilute commitment. Purpose also requires patience, meaning unfolds over time. Early stages often feel unrewarding. Progress appears invisible. This is where discipline and patience intersect. The Stoic does not abandon purpose because results are slow. He trusts that consistent effort, aligned with reason, will compound. Purpose also brings resilience. When challenges arise, the purposeful man does not collapse. He adjusts, he adapts, he continues. Purpose provides a reason to endure beyond comfort. A man without purpose avoids hardship. A man with purpose expects it. This expectation creates psychological stability. Difficulty no longer feels like injustice. It feels like part of the path. Purpose also influences identity. Over time, you stop asking, "Who am I?" Your actions answer for you. You become what you consistently do in service of your purpose. This removes confusion. Working on purpose daily also means resisting comparison. Purpose is personal. Measuring your path against others breeds doubt and impatience. The Stoic focuses on his own standard. Progress measured against yesterday, not against someone else's highlight. Purpose thrives in consistency. Small daily actions aligned with direction accumulate into transformation. No single action defines you. Repetition does. purpose is also strengthened by reflection. Quiet time to assess direction, adjust course, remove what no longer serves growth. Reflection keeps purpose aligned with reality. Without reflection, effort can drift. Purpose does not eliminate uncertainty, it provides stability within it. You may not know exactly how things will unfold, but you know why you continue. That knowledge is grounding. Remember this law clearly. Purpose is not found in comfort. It is forged through responsibility and sustained through discipline. Every day you either reinforce your purpose or weaken it through avoidance. There is no neutral. Choose deliberately. This law prepares you for the next one. Without purpose, self-control lacks direction. Law 5. Self-control is freedom in its purest form. Most people believe freedom means doing whatever they want, whenever they want. The Stoic understands the opposite. A man who obeys every impulse is not free. He is ruled, pulled by appetite, dragged by emotion, controlled by desire. True freedom belongs to the man who can say no to himself. Self-control is not repression, it is command. It is the ability to pause before acting and choose the correct response instead of the convenient one. Without self-control, discipline collapses, purpose weakens, emotional mastery fails under pressure. This law governs your ability to remain sovereign over your own behavior. Every day impulses will appear. To speak when silence would be wiser, to indulge when restraint would strengthen you, to react when patience would protect you. These impulses feel urgent, but urgency is often the enemy of reason. The Stoic treats impulse as a signal, not an order. Desire is not evil, but unchecked desire becomes a chain. When you act immediately on every urge, you teach your nervous system that it is in charge. Over time, restraint feels harder because you have practiced indulgence instead. Self-control is built the same way any strength is built, through repeated resistance. Each time you delay gratification, you strengthen your ability to choose. Each time you give in automatically, you weaken it. This is not moral judgment, it is cause and effect. The Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort for this reason. They denied themselves ease not to suffer, but to remind themselves that comfort is optional. When comfort becomes a requirement, strength dissolves. Self-control begins with awareness. You cannot control what you do not notice. Most impulsive behavior happens unconsciously. The Stoic brings it into consciousness. When you feel the urge to act, pause internally. Notice the sensation, the pull, the tension. Do nothing for a moment. That pause is power. In that pause, you regain authorship over your behavior. Self-control also requires understanding that impulses fade if not fed. Desire peaks and falls like a wave. When you act immediately, you ride the wave into habit. When you wait, it passes. Most men have never tested this. They assume desire must be obeyed. It does not. Self-control applies to speech as much as action. Many conflicts are created not by intention, but by unfiltered expression. Saying the first thing that comes to mind often feels honest, but honesty without restraint is reckless. The Stoic speaks when speech serves purpose. Otherwise, silence protects peace. Self-control also governs consumption. Food, entertainment, information. Excess dulls sensitivity. Moderation preserves clarity. When you consume constantly, attention fragments. When attention fragments, control weakens. Choose consumption deliberately. This does not mean asceticism. It means intentionality, taking what you need rather than everything you want. Self-control also strengthens emotional regulation. When you can restrain impulsive reactions, emotions lose leverage. Anger no longer dictates words. Fear no longer dictates avoidance. Desire no longer dictates decisions. This creates internal stability. The Stoics understood that many people are enslaved not by others, but by their own habits. Habits of indulgence, habits of avoidance, habits of emotional reaction. Self-control breaks these chains. Building self-control requires starting small. Choose one impulse to resist daily. It can be minor, reaching for distraction, speaking unnecessarily, indulging automatically. What matters is consistency. Each resisted impulse is a repetition. Repetitions build capacity. Self-control also demands honesty. Rationalization weakens restraint. The mind will offer explanations that justify indulgence. You deserve this. Just this once, it does not matter. The Stoic sees through these arguments. He understands that exceptions create patterns. Self-control does not mean perfection. You will fail at times. What matters is recovery. Returning to restraint without self-condemnation. Harsh self-judgment weakens resolve. Calm correction strengthens it. Over time, self-control changes identity. You stop feeling controlled by urges. You feel grounded, centered, less reactive. Others notice. They sense stability. They sense authority. A man with self-control does not need to prove himself. He does not chase validation. He is not pulled into unnecessary conflict. This is power. Self-control also prepares you for adversity. When hardship arrives, the untrained man collapses into coping behaviors. Overindulgence, escapism, reaction. The Stoic remains restrained even under stress. This preserves clarity when it matters most. Remember this law clearly. Freedom is not the absence of limits. It is the presence of self-command. Every day you are either strengthening your ability to choose or surrendering it to impulse. There is no neutral. Choose mastery. This law prepares you for the next one. Without self-control, patience cannot survive. Law 6. Patience is controlled power, not passive waiting. Most men misunderstand patience. They see it as weakness, as hesitation, as surrender. The Stoic knows patience is the discipline of remaining steady while time does its work. It is strength under control. It is action without panic. It is commitment without urgency. Impatience feels productive, but it destroys more than it builds. It rushes decisions. It forces outcomes. It turns pressure into mistakes. A man ruled by impatience mistakes speed for progress and motion for direction. Patience corrects this illusion. The Stoic accepts a simple truth. Some things cannot be rushed without being ruined. Skill, character, trust, mastery, these require repetition over time. Trying to accelerate them produces fragility, not strength. Patience is not inactivity. It is sustained effort without emotional volatility. When progress feels slow, impatience whispers that the effort is pointless. That voice is dangerous. It convinces men to abandon discipline just before results appear. Patience keeps you anchored to the process when reward is delayed. Most people quit because they misinterpret silence as failure. The Stoic expects silence. He understands that growth often happens beneath the surface before it becomes visible. Roots form before branches rise. Stability forms before expansion. This expectation changes behavior. Instead of reacting to every delay, the Stoic continues working. Instead of demanding immediate validation, he refines his effort. Patience also regulates emotion. When outcomes do not arrive on schedule, frustration arises, anger appears, doubt follows. An impatient man reacts to these emotions by forcing change or quitting altogether. The patient man pauses. He adjusts strategy without abandoning principle. He refines execution without questioning purpose. Patience does not mean tolerating stagnation. It means distinguishing between necessary waiting and avoidable delay. The Stoic does not confuse patience with passivity. He acts when action is required and waits when waiting is required. Knowing the difference is wisdom. Daily patience training begins with accepting that discomfort is temporary. Restlessness, frustration, the urge to rush. These sensations peak and fade if not fed. When you endure them calmly, they lose power. Impatience often comes from ego, the need to be seen progressing, the need for recognition, the need to feel ahead. The Stoic releases this need. He measures progress internally, by effort given, by consistency maintained, by integrity preserved. Patience also sharpens focus. When you are not rushing, attention deepens. You notice details. You correct errors early. You avoid shortcuts that later become liabilities. The impatient man skips fundamentals. The patient man masters them. This is why patience compounds results. Another aspect of patience is emotional endurance. People will disappoint you. Plans will change. Efforts will be misunderstood. The Stoic does not react emotionally to every disruption. He absorbs it without internal chaos. This emotional steadiness protects energy. Patience also protects relationships. Reactive responses damage trust. Calm responses preserve it. Even in conflict, patience allows space for reason to operate. This does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means responding deliberately instead of impulsively. Patience requires long-term vision. Short-term discomfort is easier to endure when you understand where the path leads. The Stoic keeps his direction in mind. This perspective reduces urgency. When you know why you are enduring, endurance becomes possible. Daily patience training also includes resisting the urge to compare timelines. Comparison breeds impatience. It distorts perception. It makes progress feel inadequate. The Stoic measures progress against his own past, not someone else's present. Patience also involves trust. Not blind trust, but trust in process. Trust that disciplined effort applied consistently produces results, even when they are not immediately visible. This trust is earned through repetition. Each time patience is rewarded, confidence grows. Patience also strengthens resilience. When setbacks occur, the impatient man spirals. The patient man recalibrates. He understands that setbacks are part of any meaningful pursuit. He does not take them personally. Patience also governs ambition. Unchecked ambition becomes desperation. Patience tempers ambition with realism. It allows growth without self-destruction. The Stoics valued moderation because it supported longevity. Burnout is not strength, it is poor pacing. Patience also applies to personal change. Identity does not shift overnight. Habits take time to rewire. Emotional patterns take time to soften. Expecting immediate transformation creates frustration. The Stoic commits to gradual improvement, each day focused, each day intentional, each day steady. Patience also improves decision-making. When urgency is removed, clarity improves. Choices become less reactive. Consequences are considered. Regret decreases. This mental space is invaluable. Another discipline of patience is timing. Acting too early can be as damaging as acting too late. The Stoic waits for the appropriate moment. He does not force outcomes before conditions align. This does not mean waiting for perfection. It means recognizing readiness. Patience also protects peace. When you accept that some things unfold slowly, internal resistance decreases. You stop fighting time. You stop resenting delay. This acceptance reduces suffering. Over time, patience reshapes identity. You become someone who remains composed while others panic. Someone who continues while others quit. Someone who trusts effort more than excitement. This steadiness attracts respect. Remember this law clearly. Patience is not weakness. It is restraint paired with resolve. Everyday life will test your patience. Delays, obstacles, slow progress. Each test is training. Endure correctly. This law prepares you for the next one. Without patience, silence becomes impossible. Law 7. Silence is the discipline that protects your power. In a world addicted to noise, silence has become rare. And because it is rare, it has become dangerous to those who rely on distraction. Silence exposes intention. It reveals insecurity. It removes the shield of constant expression. That is why most men avoid it. The Stoic embraces silence because silence is not emptiness. It is control. Most people speak too quickly and too much. They explain themselves unnecessarily. They react verbally before thought arrives. They leak energy through words without realizing it. Speech feels harmless, but uncontrolled speech erodes authority. The man who speaks less observes more. The man who observes more understands better, and the man who understands better acts with precision. Silence is not about saying nothing. It is about saying only what is necessary. When you speak impulsively, you reveal your emotional state. When you speak excessively, you dilute the value of your words. When you defend yourself constantly, you signal insecurity. The Stoic avoids these traps. He understands that not every thought deserves expression. Not every insult deserves response. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Silence allows you to choose when to engage and when to withdraw. This choice is power. Most conflict escalates because someone felt compelled to respond immediately. Words spoken under emotion rarely produce resolution. They produce damage. Silence interrupts this pattern. When anger rises, silence allows it to pass without consequence. When ego demands expression, silence restores balance. When pride wants to prove something, silence preserves dignity. This is not weakness. It is restraint. The Stoics believed that wisdom begins with listening. Listening to others. Listening to circumstances. Listening to one's own inner state. Noise interferes with all three. A man who fills every space with words never hears what matters. Daily silence practice begins with reducing unnecessary speech, speaking less in conversations, avoiding commentary on everything, allowing pauses to exist without filling them. At first, this feels uncomfortable. Silence exposes restlessness. It reveals the need to be seen, validated, or acknowledged. This discomfort is not a problem, it is information. Silence also sharpens awareness. When you are not busy talking, you notice details, tone, behavior, subtext. You begin to understand situations more accurately. This awareness improves judgment. Silence also protects emotional stability. Many emotional reactions are fueled by verbal expression. Speaking anger amplifies it. Complaining reinforces frustration. Repeating grievances keeps them alive. Silence starves these patterns. This does not mean suppressing truth. It means choosing the correct time and manner to express it. The Stoic speaks deliberately, not habitually. Another dimension of silence is restraint in sharing plans. Broadcasting intentions invites interference, opinions, doubt, distraction. The Stoic builds quietly. When results arrive, no explanation is required. Silence also applies to success. Constantly announcing achievements creates dependence on external validation. The Stoic lets his work speak. This preserves internal motivation. When praise is absent, he remains steady. When criticism appears, he remains unmoved. Silence also governs digital behavior. Constant posting, commenting, arguing. These drain attention and provoke emotion. The Stoic limits exposure. He chooses presence over participation. Silence also strengthens discipline. When you stop narrating your efforts, You focus more deeply on execution. Energy once spent explaining is redirected toward building. This quiet focus compounds progress. Silence also builds mystery. Predictability weakens influence. The man who reveals everything loses leverage. The man who reveals selectively maintains it. This does not mean manipulation, it means discretion. Silence also enhances self-knowledge. When external noise decreases, internal patterns emerge. Thoughts become clearer. Intentions sharpen. Doubt surfaces and can be addressed. Without silence, the mind remains cluttered. Daily silence practice can include periods without speech, without media, without stimulation, sitting quietly, walking without distraction. These moments recalibrate the nervous system. At first, the mind resists. It seeks stimulation. This resistance reveals dependency. Do not escape. Stay. Silence also teaches patience. It slows impulsive response. It creates space between stimulus and action. In that space, choice exists. Silence also improves relationships. Listening more deeply reduces misunderstanding. Responding less reactively reduces conflict. Presence becomes more valuable than commentary. People feel steadier around a calm listener. Silence also strengthens inner authority. When you are not constantly expressing, you feel less pressure to perform. You become grounded, self-contained. This internal stability is felt by others. The Stoic understands that power does not announce itself. It arrives quietly. It does not argue. It does not defend. It does not chase attention. It remains composed. Silence also guards against unnecessary regret. Many regrets are born from words spoken too quickly. Silence prevents irreversible statements. You can always choose to speak later. You cannot retrieve spoken words. Silence also preserves energy. Emotional arguments drain strength. Constant engagement exhausts focus. Silence conserves both. This conservation allows endurance. Over time, silence reshapes identity. You become someone who is not easily provoked, someone who does not need to explain, someone who acts deliberately. This composure is rare. Remember this law clearly. Silence is not absence. It is presence under control. Every day you choose whether to leak power through words or preserve it through restraint. Choose deliberately. This law prepares you for the next one. Without silence, gratitude cannot deepen. Law 8. Gratitude anchors the mind and stabilizes strength. Most people misunderstand gratitude. They see it as passive acceptance or forced positivity. The Stoic understands gratitude as discipline of perception. It is the ability to see clearly what is present instead of being consumed by what is missing. A man without gratitude is easy to destabilize. He is always chasing the next thing, always dissatisfied, always vulnerable to envy, resentment, and impatience. No matter how much he gains, it never feels enough. Gratitude interrupts this cycle. Gratitude does not mean denying hardship. It means refusing to let hardship blind you to what still functions, to what still exists, to what still deserves respect. The Stoics practiced gratitude not because life was easy, but because life was uncertain. They understood that everything external is temporary. Health fades, status shifts, possessions disappear. Remembering this sharpened appreciation for what was available now. Gratitude begins with awareness of impermanence. When you recognize that nothing is guaranteed, the present moment gains weight. Small things regain value. Simple stability becomes meaningful. This awareness does not create fear, it creates clarity. Most frustration is born from expectation. You expect life to move faster. You expect people to behave better. You expect effort to be rewarded immediately. When reality does not match expectation, dissatisfaction grows. Gratitude lowers unnecessary expectation. It does not eliminate ambition. It removes entitlement. This is critical. A man who feels entitled becomes bitter. A man who feels grateful remains grounded. Grounded men endure pressure better because their satisfaction is not dependent on constant improvement. Gratitude also neutralizes comparison. Comparison destroys peace faster than failure. It distorts perception and creates urgency where none is needed. The Stoic measures progress internally. He looks at what has improved, what has been survived, what has been built quietly. Gratitude also strengthens resilience. When difficulty appears, the grateful man does not collapse into complaint. He acknowledges challenge while remembering previous victories. This perspective creates confidence. You have endured before. You can endure again. Daily gratitude practice does not require emotion. It requires recognition. Each morning, identify what still functions: your body, your mind, your opportunity to act. Each evening, recognize effort given, not just outcomes achieved. This shifts focus from lack to capability. Gratitude also stabilizes emotion. Anxiety thrives on scarcity thinking. Fear grows when the mind fixates on loss. Gratitude counters this by grounding attention in what is present. This does not remove risk. It removes panic. The Stoics believed that happiness does not come from accumulation. It comes from sufficiency, knowing when enough is enough. This knowledge protects against endless chasing. A man who always wants more is never satisfied. A man who appreciates what he has is difficult to manipulate. Gratitude also improves discipline. When you respect what you have built, you are less likely to sabotage it. When you appreciate your progress, you protect it. This creates continuity. Gratitude also refines desire. It shifts motivation from desperation to intention. You pursue goals because they align with growth, not because you feel incomplete without them. This distinction matters. Gratitude also strengthens character. It reduces arrogance. It increases humility. It reminds you that effort alone does not control outcomes. Circumstance plays a role. This humility does not weaken resolve. It deepens it. The Stoic remains confident without becoming entitled. Gratitude also improves relationships. When you recognize effort in others, conflict softens. Expectations adjust. Appreciation replaces resentment. This does not mean tolerating disrespect. It means seeing clearly without emotional distortion. Gratitude also supports patience. When you value the present, waiting becomes easier. You are not desperate to escape now. You are engaged with now. This reduces restlessness. Daily gratitude practice also includes reframing difficulty. Instead of asking why this is happening, ask what this is training. Instead of focusing on discomfort, focus on adaptation. This transforms hardship into instruction. Gratitude does not remove pain, it removes bitterness. The Stoic accepts pain as part of life, but refuses to add suffering through complaint. Another element of gratitude is remembering fragility. The Stoics reminded themselves that loved ones' health and stability are temporary. This was not morbid, it was clarifying. When you remember fragility, appreciation sharpens. You stop postponing presence. You stop assuming continuity. You engage fully. Gratitude also strengthens peace. When you appreciate enough, urgency decreases. You are not rushing to fill a void. You are building from stability. This calm focus improves decision-making. Gratitude also resists external control. Advertisements, social pressure, and comparison depend on dissatisfaction. Gratitude disrupts this influence. A content man is hard to exploit. Over time, gratitude reshapes identity. You become someone who is not easily shaken by minor loss. Someone who maintains composure when things go wrong. Someone who appreciates progress without becoming complacent. This balance is strength. Gratitude does not eliminate desire, it refines it. You pursue growth without resenting the present. This creates internal alignment. Remember this law clearly. Gratitude is not weakness. It is perspective disciplined by reason. Every day you can choose to focus on lack or on foundation. One weakens, the other stabilizes. Choose stability. This law prepares you for the final one. Without gratitude, character cannot remain clean. Hey, warrior, you have reached the end, but this is not a conclusion. It is a checkpoint. Everything you have heard across these parts was not designed to impress you. It was designed to confront you. Because real Stoic strength does not come from information. It comes from repetition, from application, from choosing discipline when no one is watching. The laws you have been given are not meant to be admired. They are meant to be lived. You were taught to master your mind so your thoughts stop sabotaging your future. You were taught to command your emotions so reactions stop controlling your behavior. You were taught discipline so effort becomes reliable. You were taught purpose so action has direction. You were taught self-control so impulses lose authority. You were taught patience so time becomes an ally. You were taught silence so power stops leaking. You were taught gratitude so stability replaces restlessness. Together these laws form a structure, not motivation, not inspiration. Structure, and structure is what holds a man upright when pressure increases. Most people consume content hoping to feel something. They chase emotion because emotion feels like progress. But emotion fades quickly. Structure remains. That is why Stoicism endures. It does not depend on mood. It depends on principle. Now the responsibility shifts. Because knowing these laws without living them creates frustration. You become aware of what you should be doing, but do not act. That gap becomes uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a problem. It is a signal. It is telling you that it is time to stop consuming and start embodying. Do not try to apply everything at once. That is another form of impatience. Choose one law. 1. Apply it daily until it becomes behavior. Then move to the next. This is how transformation actually happens. Quietly, gradually, relentlessly. There will be days when discipline feels heavy. Days when patience feels slow. Days when silence feels isolating. Days when gratitude feels difficult. Those are not signs to stop. Those are signs the training is working. Pressure reveals habit. Habit reveals character. Character determines destiny. The world does not need louder men. It needs steadier ones. Men who do not panic when conditions change. Men who do not crumble when approval disappears. Men who do not lose control when emotion rises. That steadiness begins internally. You do not need permission to become disciplined. You do not need validation to be calm. You do not need applause to act correctly. You only need commitment. Every morning you wake up, you are given a choice. Strengthen your inner structure or weaken it. Protect your peace or trade it for noise. Act with intention or drift through convenience. No one will stop you from choosing the easy path. No one will congratulate you for choosing the hard one. That is why so few do. Stoicism was never about appearing strong. It was about becoming unshakable, about developing a mind that does not collapse under stress, and a character that does not rot under comfort. If you take these laws seriously, something will change. Not immediately, but steadily. You will notice yourself pausing instead of reacting, choosing silence instead of explanation, acting without needing motivation. Others will notice too, not because you announce it, but because your presence becomes different, calmer, heavier, more controlled. This is the quiet authority Stoicism produces. Now, listen carefully. If this series challenged you, do not let it end here. Commit publicly. Write one sentence in the comments. Not for attention, for accountability. Write this: I commit to mastering myself daily. That is it. No long explanations, no excuses, no promises to the world, just a statement of responsibility. If you found value here, support the channel. Like the video so it reaches others who are still drifting. Share it with someone who needs structure more than comfort. Subscribe if you want content that builds discipline instead of chasing noise. This channel is not here to entertain weakness. It is here to train strength. Remember this: the world will try to pull you back into distraction. Comfort will invite you to rest before you are ready. Excuses will return dressed as logic. When they do, return to the laws. Master your mind. Command your emotions. Honor discipline. Live with purpose. Exercise self-control. Practice patience. Protect silence. Anchor gratitude. Do this long enough and something irreversible happens. You stop being moved by chaos. You stop needing approval. You stop fearing pressure. You become grounded. And a grounded man cannot be easily broken. Stand steady. Move deliberately. Build quietly. This is not the end. This is the standard. Stay disciplined.